Hello, Spanish 2 students. So this week, we are going to jump back in with reflexive verbs. How great. So we talked about these about a week before Christmas break. And then last week, I gave you a little bit of a break, trying to ease you back into the school process, I guess, with body part vocabulary, which is going to be essential for describing our daily routine with reflexive verbs. So today we're going to go over reflexive verbs like they're brand spanking new. We're going to talk about how to use them, when they're appropriate, and how to partner them with reflexive pronouns. So this week you have 2 assignments. First assignment is just a reflexive verb worksheet. And we're actually going to do some examples from that paper today on this video. And then your second is a Google form / quizzes over reflexive verbs. And it's only going to be live for about a week and a half. So make sure you go ahead and get that done this week. Otherwise, you might not have the opportunity. But it's only going to be worth about 5 points. And it's participation. So if you get, you can take the quizzes as many times as you want to get the appropriate score, the best score possible. So if you get a 75% or higher on the quizzes, you're going to get 100%. You're going to get 5 points. If you get like a 60 to a 75, you're going to get about 4 or 3 points, depending on how close or far away from the 75 you are. And then if you fail the quizzes and you don't take it again, you'll probably get like a 1 or 2 out of 5. So remember, if you fail it, you can take it as many times as you want. So take it until you get, a passing score, at least. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my document camera with you, and we're going to take notes the old-fashioned way. So if you want to work smarter and not harder, you need to invest a little bit of your time right now and take these notes along with me. That way, once it's time to actually do the work on your own, you'll have the material right in front of you, and you won't have to come back and watch this video again and again and again. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my document camera screen. Okay. Here we go. Spanish 2 reflexive review. So first off, what are reflexive verbs? So reflexive verbs are used in Spanish to express when someone is doing an action to themselves. And you need to know reflexive verbs always have a reflexive pronoun. It's like their sidekick. They don't go anywhere without them. So to kind of piggyback off of this, you can always identify a reflexive in its infinitive form based on the reflexive pronoun. This should be like a red flag. So you can always identify a reflexive in the infinitive form because it will end in se. And the se is just going to be tagged on to the regular infinitive verb. So an example of this, we have the infinitive lavar. We know it's an infinitive because it ends in AR, ER, or IR. And then se at the end, lavarse. Or if we have ducharse, it's got that infinitive and then se. That's another one. Cepillarse. Got infinitive and then that's se at the end. So when we are conjugating reflexive verbs, we have to follow a certain order of operations. So we have step one. It's going to be take the se off at the end. And move it to the front. So an example, let's take cepillarse. Take that se, I'm going to transplant it up here. So it would give me se cepillar. So step two is going to be to change the reflexive pronoun, which is the se, the sentence's subject. And this, you are going to change the se based on this chart. So this is set up in the exact same way that all of your other charts have been set up. So if our subject is yo, we're going to use me. If it is tu, we will use te. If it is él, ella, usted, se. Nosotros, nos, vosotros, os, and then ellos, ellas, and ustedes will also be se. So let's use the same example. I want to say you. I want to be my subject. So because tu is my subject, I'm going to pick te. Tu te cepillar. So you see how se changed to te right here. That is my reflexive pronoun. And then step three, our final step, has some sub-steps. So step 3 is to conjugate the infinitive ending. And then if we remember, we have specific charts for each of these endings in the present tense. Now I'm just going to write them out to be extra helpful. I know some of you have had these memorized since like this time last year. Some of you still don't know them. So there's no time like the present to memorize them. So the AR endings, we have O, as, a, amos, ais, an. ER is O, S, E, emos, ais, in. And then IR is O, S, E, imos, is, in. So you guys remember the rules. We drop the AR, ER, or IR and just replace it with the appropriate ending. So the example that I used on the other page, so if we have tu te cepillar, we need to change this AR. We need to conjugate it. So because it is an AR verb, we're going to use our AR chart. And our subject is to, so we know that to is right here. Okay, so tú te cepillas, and then we might have los dientes. And then from your body parts, hopefully you remember that this means teeth. So this sentence will be, you brush your teeth. Okay. So I'm going to conjugate out two verbs completely, just so you can have good examples. And one thing that you don't need to forget about are stem changes. Just because we took our quiz over stem changing verbs doesn't mean that we get to forget about them. So I'm going to do two stem changing verbs as examples. So we have despertarse. So this E changes to an IE. And then we have acostarse. And this O changes to a UE. So the first thing I'm going to do on this chart is I'm going to go ahead and insert my reflexive pronouns because I know the order already. So I have me, te, se, nos, os, se. So in my head, I'm going to mark that off. So now what we're going to focus on is conjugating despertar. And like I said, it is a stem changing verb. So all of the forms, if you remember, inside of the boot are going to change from E to IE. So we have despierto. Te despiertas. Se despierta. Nos despertamos. Os despertáis. Then se despiertan. And then over here, so I'm going to insert my subject pronouns to this chart. Save me a step in just a second. And then to help me visualize, I'm going to draw out the boot for these stem changes. So we have me acuesto. Te acuestas. Se acuesta. Nos acostamos. Os acostáis. And then se acuestan. So now what I'd like to do is go over a few examples from our worksheet for this week. We'll do 2 or 3 from each section. Okay. So section 1, let's read our directions. Section 1 says reflexive pronouns are the element of reflexive verbs that set them apart from regular conjugations in the present tense. Select the correct reflexive pronoun to complete each sentence. The chart below contains reflexive pronouns. So these are going to be our answers for each of these. The thing I noticed most on your all's worksheets from before Christmas break, there was one section where we had to conjugate the verbs, and consistently about, I'd say 3/4 of you neglected to put the reflexive pronoun. So that's why I made this a section. So you know it's just as important as the infinitive that was conjugated. Okay, so we have los muchachos blank levantan temprano. So we have the subject, los muchachos, which is the equivalent of ellos, which goes with this box. So we have los muchachos se levantan temprano. The boys get up early. Número 2, our subject. Nosotros blank acostamos a las 7 de la noche. So nosotros goes right here. Nosotros nos acostamos. And then finally we have Alberto. Alberto is the same as saying él or he, which is in this box right here. So we're going to have se siente mal. He feels bad. Okay. So now that we have done that section, we're going to move on to section 2. So in each option for section 2, you notice there are 2 blanks. One blank is for the reflexive pronoun, like we did in the previous section. Either me, te, se, nos, os, or se. And then the second is for the present tense conjugation. So if you look at our example, we have vosotros, os a reflexive pronoun. And then despertáis is the conjugation. So for number 9, we have blank temprano o tarde. So someone is asking you a direct question. So for this one, we're going to use the subject to. So the reflexive pronoun that goes with to is te. And then we are going to conjugate levantar in the to form. Te levantas temprano o tarde. Do you get yourself up early or late? Okay. Number 10. Nuestra amiga blank el pelo después de bañarse. So we are going to conjugate peinarse for amiga, which is the same as saying ella, she. So the se is actually going to stay the same. And then we are going to conjugate peinar to comb for ella. So nuestra amiga se peina el pelo después de bañarse. So our friend combs her hair after she bathes. And then we have mis primos. That's our subject. So mis primos, or my cousins, would be the equivalent of saying ellos. So the se is going to remain the same. Then we are going to conjugate llamar for primos, or ellos. So because it's an AR verb, it will end in AN. Mis primos se llaman Tomás, John, y Marco. My cousins are named Thomas, John, and Marco. So I'll write these 3 translations down. And you might be like, how am I supposed to know what these verbs mean? So these verbs, all your reflexive verbs, they're on your word bank that I posted on December 4th with like your body parts, reflexive verbs, and other helpful objects. I'll show you where you can find that word bank one more time. So our friend combs her hair after she bathes. And then we have my cousins and Marco. So those are your examples. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen. So let's go to a Spanish 2 class. I showed you this last week, but just in case you can't find it. So I apologize, I said December 4th. It's actually posted on December 6th. So when you got your initial reflexive verb notes, right here is your word bank. And the first section, this orange section, is full of reflexive verbs. And these are the reflexive verbs that I'm going to use on all your papers as well as on your upcoming quiz. Won't be for a couple weeks, but you still need to work on memorizing these. If you have any questions, feel free to come to our help sessions at 2 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday. If you can't make it to those, please let me know if you need help. We can do one-on-one Zooms, or you can message me on Remind or email me. Have a good day.